It was supposed to be a simple flight delay. My boss's meeting in New York had been canceled at the last minute, and I found myself on an earlier flight home. A nice surprise for my wife, Jessica. Or so I thought. I had been looking forward to spending the evening with her and our two kids, sharing a homemade dinner, maybe watching something on Netflix. As I pulled into the driveway of our two-story home in the quiet suburb of Willow Creek, something felt off. The porch light was on, which was odd. Jessica usually turned it off after dark to save energy, a habit she'd picked up from her dad. Her car was parked in its usual spot, and the faint glow of lights seeped through the living room curtains. I grabbed my suitcase and made my way to the front door, only to find it unlocked. That alone sent a ripple of unease down my spine. "Jess?" I called out, stepping inside. Silence greeted me. The usual hum of the TV or the soft chatter of her favorite true crime podcast was conspicuously absent. Even our dog, Max, didn't trot to the door to greet me. My chest tightened. I set my suitcase down and moved through the house, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. The kids' toys were scattered in the living room. A half-empty cup of coffee sat on the kitchen counter, but there was no sign of Jessica. That's when I heard it, a muffled laugh coming from upstairs. My stomach twisted. It wasn't the warm, familiar laugh I'd heard 1,000 times before. This was different, lower, throaty, and intimate. My mind raced as I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she had friends over? Maybe it was the TV? But as I climbed the stairs, the sound grew clearer, joined by the rhythmic creak of our bed. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of dread and disbelief building with each step. When I reached the top, the bedroom door was slightly ajar, and through the crack, I saw shadows moving against the wall. "No," I whispered, my throat tightening. "This can't be." I pushed the door open, and my world shattered. There she was, my Jessica, the woman I had loved for over a decade, with her legs wrapped around another man. His shirt was off, his back to me, but her face was clear as day. She was laughing, her fingers tangled in his hair, her expression one of unrestrained joy, the kind of joy she hadn't shown with me in years. "Jessica," I croaked, my voice barely audible over the roaring in my ears. Her head snapped toward me, her eyes widening in shock. "Hank, what are you? What the hell is this?" I bellowed, finally finding my voice. The man, tall, broad, and unfamiliar, scrambled off her, grabbing a pair of pants from the floor. Jessica pulled a sheet around herself, her face pale. "Hank, it's not what it looks like," she stammered, tears already pooling in her eyes. "Not what it looks like." I spat, the rage surging through me like wildfire. "I come home early to find my wife screwing some guy in our bed, and you're telling me it's not what it looks like?" The man, clearly more coward than lover, mumbled something unintelligible before trying to dart past me. I grabbed him by the arm, slamming him against the wall. "Who the hell are you?" I growled, my face inches from his. "And why are you in my house?" "Hank, stop," Jessica screamed, clutching the sheet tightly. "Let him go, please." The man squirmed under my grip. "I am Tom, her boss. We didn't mean for this to happen, man. It just did." His pathetic explanation was like gasoline on a fire. I released him, shoving him toward the door. "Get out before I do something I'll regret." Tom bolted, his footsteps thundering down the stairs. I turned back to Jessica, my chest heaving with rage. "How long?" I demanded, my voice cold and sharp. "How long has this been going on?" She looked away, her lip trembling. "Hank, How long, Jessica?" I roared, slamming my fist against the wall. "You owe me that much." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "A few months," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It didn't mean anything. I swear, Hank, it didn't mean anything." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "Didn't mean anything? You destroyed everything we built for nothing? Our marriage, our family, our kids. You threw it all away for nothing?" Before she could respond, a knock at the front door echoed through the house. We both froze. "Hank, I think the neighbors called the police," she whispered. I clenched my fists, my vision blurring with fury. "Good," I muttered. storming downstairs. Maybe they can help me figure out what the hell just happened to my life. I stormed down the stairs, my chest heaving with fury. The knock at the door came again, more insistent this time, like a hammer driving nails into my already splintered world. Jessica trailed behind me, her voice a frantic whisper. "Hank, please don't make a scene. We can talk about this, just the two of us." I spun around at the bottom of the staircase, pointing a trembling finger at her. "You think I'm worried about making a scene, Jessica? You made your choice upstairs. Now you can deal with the consequences." The knock turned into pounding. I yanked open the door to find Officer Morales, our neighborhood beat cop, standing on the porch, flashlight in hand. His face was a mix of concern and professionalism. Behind him, a small crowd of neighbors had gathered on their porches and lawns, their curious faces illuminated by the glow of streetlights. "Mr. Harrison," Morales said, his tone cautious, "we got a call about a disturbance. Everything okay here?" I laughed bitterly, gesturing toward the house behind me. "Oh, everything's just peachy, officer. I came home to find my wife cheating on me with her boss. Want to join the party?" "Hank, stop it," Jessica hissed, her face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. Morales raised a hand, his voice firm but calm. "Let's take a breath here. Why don't we step outside and talk?" I stepped onto the porch, slamming the door behind me. Morales motioned for me to walk a few steps away from the house, but I could still feel the eyes of the neighborhood glued to us. The faint hum of whispers carried on the cool night air. "Mr. Harrison," Morales began, "I get that you're upset, but shouting isn't going to solve anything. Are you sure you want to do this in front of everyone?" I clenched my fists, feeling the raw scrape of my nails against my palms. "I didn't ask for an audience, Morales. I didn't ask for any of this. I just came home early, and now my whole life's gone to hell." Morales nodded, his expression softening. "I understand. Look, I've been in this line of work long enough to know emotions run high in situations like this. But let's keep this civil. Do you want me to ask your wife to step out and mediate, or do you need some time?" The idea of mediation made my blood boil. Mediation? She brought her lover into my house, into my bed. What's there to mediate? Before Morales could answer, the front door creaked open, and Jessica stepped onto the porch. She was clutching the same sheet she'd wrapped around herself upstairs, her face pale and tear-streaked. A fresh wave of anger surged through me at the sight of her. "Jessica," Morales said, turning to her, "is there anything you'd like to add?" She looked at him, then at me, her lips trembling. "Hank, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Please, can we just talk privately? We can work this out. For the kids." I barked out a laugh so bitter it startled even me. "For the kids? Don't you dare use them to justify what you've done." Morales stepped between us, his presence a wall of calm in the storm. "All right, let's all take a step back. Mr. Harrison, how about you stay at a friend's place tonight? Give yourselves some space." "She's the one who should leave," I snapped. "Why should I be the one to leave when she's the one who destroyed our family?" "Because I'm trying to prevent this from escalating," Morales said firmly. "We don't need this turning into something worse." I glared at him but said nothing. Deep down, I knew he was right. The raw anger coursing through me was barely contained. If I stayed, I didn't trust myself not to say or do something I couldn't take back. The door of the house next to ours creaked open, and Mrs. Rose, our nosy neighbor, stepped out. Her phone was pointed directly at us, recording. "Are you getting all this, Carol?" she muttered to someone behind her. "This is better than that Lifetime movie we watched last week. Go back inside, Rose." I shouted. "You've done enough for one night." She didn't budge. If anything, she leaned in closer. Morales shot her a sharp look. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step away and stop recording." Rose frowned but retreated a few steps, her phone still raised. "Fine, but don't expect me to delete this. People deserve to know what's happening in their neighborhood." I shook my head, my anger now laced with humiliation. The entire block would be gossiping about this for weeks, months, even. "Hank," Jessica said, her voice trembling, "please, let's just go inside and talk. We can figure this out." But I couldn't look at her. Not without seeing that image burned into my mind. Her laughing, her legs wrapped around another man. Morales put a hand on my shoulder. "Mr. Harrison, how about I call you a ride? You can stay somewhere else for the night and clear your head." I hesitated, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Finally, I nodded. "Fine. But this isn't over." As Morales stepped aside to make the call, I shot one last glance at Jessica. Her eyes were wide and pleading, but I turned away, stepping down the porch steps. The weight of the neighbor's stares followed me to the curb, where I sat on the edge, my world crashing down around me. Sitting in the back of the Uber Morales had called for me, my mind churned with questions and anger. The shock of what I had just witnessed hadn't worn off. It was like my brain refused to fully process it. The driver, sensing my mood, wisely kept quiet as I stared out the window at the passing streetlights. I had no destination in mind, so I gave him the address of a nearby motel. Anywhere but home. Once I checked into the dimly lit room, I sat on the edge of the bed, pulling out my phone. My fingers hovered over Jessica's contact, but I couldn't bring myself to call her. What could I say that hadn't already been screamed? Instead, I scrolled through our shared cloud account. Jessica was terrible with technology, relying on me to manage all our devices, including syncing her phone to the family cloud. The first thing I noticed was a folder I didn't recognize, work projects. It seemed harmless enough, but when I opened it, I saw a collection of photos. My stomach twisted. There she was, Jessica, in lingerie I didn't recognize, posing in front of a hotel mirror. The timestamp was from last month, the same weekend she told me she was working overtime on a big proposal. My hand shook as I flipped through more photos. Some were selfies with her boss, Tom, his hand on her waist, his lips brushing her cheek. Others were more explicit, taken in what was clearly a hotel room. Each image felt like a dagger plunging deeper into my chest. Then came the videos. My finger hovered over the play button, dread pooling in my gut. I couldn't stop myself. The first video opened with Jessica's voice, laughing and whispering something about finally feeling alive again. The rest was a blur of movements I couldn't watch, but I couldn't look away. I slammed the phone down, while rising in my throat. I stumbled into the motel bathroom and threw up into the sink. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, pale, hollow-eyed, and broken. What had happened to my life? Wiping my mouth, I returned to the bed and opened my laptop. I needed answers. I needed to know how long this had been going on. Using my admin access to the family cloud, I unlocked Jessica's email account. My hands trembled as I scrolled through months of messages. It didn't take long to find the incriminating emails. Subject: Dallas Conference. Tom, last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about the way you kissed me. Can't wait for the next trip. Love, Jay. Subject: Missed you. You were amazing as always. I hate that I have to go home and pretend everything's normal. At least I'll see you tomorrow at the office. Counting the hours. Love. My rage bubbled to the surface. She hadn't even tried to hide it. This wasn't a one-time mistake or a lapse in judgment. It was a full-blown affair, complete with sweet nothings and secret rendezvous. The final straw came when I found a string of messages between Jessica and our neighbor, Mrs. Rose. The same nosy neighbor who had been filming our argument earlier tonight. Jessica, Hank's still clueless. Thank you for covering for me last weekend. Tom and I really needed the time alone. Mrs. Rose, of course, honey. Just remember, if you ever need more cover, you've got me. Women have to stick together. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. Mrs. Rose wasn't just a meddler. She was an accomplice. That explained why she had been so eager to film tonight. She probably couldn't wait to dissect every detail with the other neighbors. As the hours dragged on, I pieced together the extent of Jessica's betrayal. The photos, the emails, the videos, they painted a picture of a woman I didn't recognize. The life we had built together, the trust, the sacrifices, it had all been a lie. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I made a decision. This wasn't going to end with me quietly walking away. If Jessica thought she could humiliate me, destroy our family, and walk away unscathed, she was dead wrong. I was going to fight back, and I was going to hit her where it hurt. I called my best friend, Mike, who had always been my rock during tough times. Mike, I said, my voice hoarse from hours of silence. I need your help. What's going on, Hank? It's 3 in the morning. She's been cheating on me. I need you to help me make her regret it. There was a pause, then a sigh. Hank, you sure you want to go down this road? I'm not sure of anything anymore, I admitted. But I can't let her get away with this. Mike agreed to meet me the next morning to start planning my next steps. I hung up and stared at the ceiling, the anger and betrayal burning in my chest like acid. Jessica had broken me, but I wasn't going to stay broken. If she wanted to turn my life into a soap opera, then I was going to rewrite the script, and I would make sure she didn't like the ending. The following morning, I awoke with a pounding headache and a renewed sense of determination. I had spent the night sifting through the wreckage of my marriage, photos, emails, and videos, documenting every piece of evidence. It wasn't enough to just feel betrayed. I needed a plan. Jessica's actions had burned my trust to ashes, but now it was time for her to face the consequences. I left the motel, stopping only for a strong black coffee at a nearby diner before heading home. The streets were eerily quiet, save for a few neighbors walking their dogs, their eyes darting toward me with thinly veiled curiosity. News travels fast in suburban America, especially when your wife's affair becomes the evening's entertainment. When I pulled into the driveway, Jessica's car was still parked in its usual spot. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if she was inside, waiting to apologize or explain. But the anger simmering in my chest drowned out any notion of reconciliation. I stepped through the front door, slamming it shut behind me. Jessica appeared in the hallway almost instantly, her face pale and drawn. Hank, she started, her voice trembling. I was so worried. You didn't come home last night. I dropped my keys on the console table and stared at her, letting the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Worried? I finally said, my voice cold. You were worried about me? That's rich, coming from the woman who was in bed with another man less than 24 hours ago. She flinched but didn't look away. I know I made a mistake, but we can fix this. Please, Hank, we need to talk. I crossed my arms, leaning against the wall. Talk? You mean like how you talked with Tom? Or maybe you mean the conversations you had with Rose about covering for your little escapades? Or should we discuss the videos I found on the cloud, Jessica? Her face went sheet white. You went through my phone? No, Jessica, I said, my voice sharp. I didn't need to. You were careless enough to sync everything to the family cloud. Do you even understand how much of your betrayal I've seen? Do you know what it's like to watch the woman you love with some other man? You've destroyed everything. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling over as she shook her head. I didn't mean for it to happen. It wasn't supposed to go this far. That's what you always say. I snapped, taking a step closer. It didn't mean anything. It wasn't supposed to happen. Do you even hear yourself? You don't just accidentally end up in bed with your boss, Jessica. And you sure as hell don't let the entire neighborhood know about it. At that, her composure cracked. She sank to the floor, clutching the hem of her sweatshirt. Hank, please. I was lost. I felt invisible. You were always working, always tired. And Tom, he noticed me. He made me feel alive again. Alive? I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. And what about me, Jessica? What about the nights I stayed up late working so we could afford this house? What about the mornings I got the kids ready so you could have 5 more minutes of sleep? You felt invisible? Well, guess what? Now I wish I had never seen you at all. Her sobs grew louder, echoing in the quiet house. I wanted to feel something. Pity, regret, anything. But all I could muster was a cold, hollow detachment. I pulled out my phone, unlocking it with deliberate slowness. Since you're so good at making excuses, let's hear them now. She froze, her eyes widening as I opened the folder labeled Evidence. I turned the screen toward her, showing her the first photo, a selfie of her and Tom in what was unmistakably a hotel room. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Explain this, I said, scrolling to the next photo, and then the next. Each one seemed to sap more life from her face. Hank, she stammered. I can't. No. I cut her off. You don't get to say you can't explain. You wanted to be seen, Jessica? Well, now everyone's going to see you for who you really are. Her head shot up, panic flashing in her eyes. What do you mean? Rose isn't the only one who can spread rumors, I said, shoving the phone back into my pocket. I've already sent these to a divorce lawyer, but I'm not stopping there. Tom's going to get a copy. So will his wife, his HR department, and every single client he works with. You wanted attention, Jessica? Congratulations. You've got it. No, she cried, scrambling to her feet. Please, Hank, don't do this. It'll ruin everything. I glared at her, my voice low and cutting. You ruined everything. Now get out of my sight. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back, shaking her off. You can stay in the guest room until we sort out the divorce, I said, heading toward the front door. But as far as I'm concerned, we're done. Before I stepped outside, I turned back one last time. And don't even think about erasing anything from the cloud. I've already backed it up. Every disgusting detail. Her sobs followed me out the door as I walked to my car, slamming it shut behind me. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I drove aimlessly through the streets of Willow Creek, the suburban calm at odds with the chaos inside my head. Jessica's excuses played on a loop in my mind, her words hollow and meaningless. The betrayal was one thing, but the thought of her bringing the neighbors into her deception, using them as accomplices, it made my blood boil. I couldn't let it slide. She'd underestimated me, and I was about to prove her wrong. I parked outside a coffee shop and pulled out my laptop, determined to compile the evidence into a concise, irrefutable case. Photos, videos, emails, I had it all. As I worked, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Mike. Mike, Hank, I know you're pissed, but you need to hear this. Call me. It's important. I frowned, hesitating for a moment. What could Mike possibly say that would change anything? Still, curiosity got the better of me. I dialed his number, and he answered almost immediately. Hank, listen, he said, his tone urgent. I've been doing some digging. Something doesn't add up about this whole thing with Jessica. I leaned back in my chair, skeptical. What are you talking about? I saw it with my own eyes, Mike. She cheated on me. End of story. That's not what I mean, he replied. I'm not excusing what she did, but I think there's more to it. You remember Tom, her boss? He's been in trouble before. My grip on the phone tightened. What kind of trouble? Sexual harassment, Mike said. 2 years ago, a woman in his department filed a complaint against him. It got swept under the rug, but I did some digging through old HR records. Turns out, Jessica isn't the first employee he's noticed. The implications hit me like a truck. You're saying he's targeting her? That he pressured her into this? I can't say for sure, Mike admitted, but it's worth looking into. Maybe Jessica's more a victim than you realize. I let out a bitter laugh. A victim? She looked pretty willing in those pictures, Mike. Maybe, he said carefully, but think about it, Hank. Why else would she stay with a guy like him? It doesn't make sense. She's not stupid. I wanted to dismiss it, to cling to the narrative that Jessica had willingly destroyed our family. But the more I thought about it, the more doubt crept in. Could it be true? Could she have been manipulated? I thanked Mike for the information and hung up, my mind racing. I needed to know the truth, but confronting Jessica again wasn't an option. Not yet. Instead, I decided to go directly to the source. If Tom had skeletons in his closet, I was going to find them. That evening, I parked outside Tom's office building and waited. It was a sleek, glass structure downtown, and the lights on the top floor were still on. Typical corporate sleaze, burning the midnight oil to maintain the illusion of importance. Around 9 p.m., I saw him leave, his designer suit pristine, his smug grin plastered across his face. I tailed him to a high-end bar a few blocks away. He walked in like he owned the place, nodding to the bartender who handed him a drink without a word. I followed, sitting a few stools down, and ordered a whiskey neat. It didn't take long to catch his attention. Tom was the kind of guy who thrived on being the center of attention. I watched as he chatted up a group of women at the bar, flashing his pearly whites and leaning in just a little too close. After about 20 minutes, I made my move. Tom Foster, right? I said, sliding onto the stool next to him. He turned to me, eyebrows raised. Do I know you? You should, I said, my voice calm. You've been sleeping with my wife. His expression faltered for a split second before he regained his composure. Ah, Hank. I was wondering when you'd show up. Can I buy you a drink? I ignored the offer. I know about the other women, Tom. You have a pattern, don't you? Find someone vulnerable, make them feel special, and then toss them aside when you're done. He smirked, sipping his drink. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do, I said, leaning closer. And if you don't come clean, I'll make sure every board member in your company sees those pictures and emails. How do you think your wife will feel about that? The smirk vanished. He set his glass down, his jaw tightening. What do you want? The truth, I said. Was Jessica just another notch on your belt, or did you manipulate her into this? He hesitated, then let out a sigh. Look, Hank, I'm not proud of everything I've done, but your wife, she's not innocent. She came to me. I didn't have to do much convincing. My stomach churned. His words confirmed my worst fears and left me questioning everything. Jessica had made her choices, but Tom had exploited them. It wasn't as black and white as I'd thought. I stood, tossing a 20 on the bar. Enjoy the drink, Tom. This isn't over. As I walked out into the night, my phone buzzed. It was Jessica, calling for the 5th time that day. I let it go to voicemail, my thoughts spinning. The picture was becoming clearer, but it wasn't the one I wanted to see. This part introduces a critical twist, the revelation that Jessica's affair may have been influenced by manipulation. It complicates the protagonist's emotions and sets the stage for the final confrontation. Let me know your thoughts. The night after my confrontation with Tom, I barely slept. His smug face, his condescending tone, it was seared into my mind. But what bothered me even more were his words about Jessica. She came to me, he'd said. Was that true? Or was he deflecting blame to save his skin? Either way, it didn't absolve him of his actions, and it certainly didn't erase what Jessica had done. By morning, my anger had crystallized into something cold and calculating. Jessica wasn't going to get away with this, and neither was Tom. If they thought they could turn my life into a circus, I'd show them what it felt like to be center stage. I spent the day finalizing my plan, starting with a visit to my lawyer. Lydia Hammond was sharp, efficient, and ruthless when it came to handling cases like mine. When I laid out the evidence, photos, emails, videos, she didn't flinch. This is more than enough, Lydia said, flipping through the folder I'd handed her. We can use this to secure a favorable divorce settlement, full custody of the kids, and even damages for emotional distress. Have you considered filing a civil suit against Tom for alienation of affection? Absolutely, I said without hesitation. I want to hit him where it hurts. Lydia nodded, jotting down notes. It'll be messy, but if we play this right, you'll come out on top. Before leaving her office, I handed her a USB drive containing everything I'd gathered. Make sure this gets into the right hands, I said. HR at Tom's company, his wife, and anyone else who needs to know what kind of man he is. Lydia smiled, a glint of mischief in her eyes. Consider it done. That afternoon, I turned my attention to Jessica. She had been blowing up my phone with calls and messages, each one more desperate than the last. I ignored them all, knowing she'd eventually come to me. And she did, right around dinner time. I was sitting in the living room, sorting through some paperwork, when the front door burst open. Jessica stood there, her face red and blotchy from crying. Hank, what are you doing? She demanded. Why aren't you answering me? I looked up at her, my expression calm. I've been busy. Busy doing what? She asked, her voice rising. Plotting how to destroy my life? I know you've been talking to people. Rose told me you went to her house. And Tom, he called me. Do you have any idea what you've done? I stood, crossing the room until I was inches from her. What I've done? You're seriously standing here, blaming me after everything you've done? You cheated, Jessica. You lied. And now you're upset because I'm not rolling over and letting you get away with it? Her bottom lip trembled, but her eyes burned with defiance. I made a mistake, Hank. A terrible mistake. But I don't deserve this. No, you don't, I said, my voice low. You deserve worse. She flinched, and for a moment, I almost felt a pang of guilt. But then I remembered the emails, the photos, the laughter I'd seen on her face as she betrayed me. That guilt vanished. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I've filed for divorce. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon. I'm also suing Tom, and I've sent everything to his HR department and his wife. By the time I'm done, his career will be over, and he'll be lucky if his wife doesn't take him for everything he's got. Her face crumpled, and she sank onto the couch. Hank, please, the kids. What about the kids? The kids will be fine, I said, because they'll be with me. Her head shot up, her eyes wide. You can't do that. I'm their mother. And you'll still be their mother, I said, my voice firm. But you're not going to drag them into your mess. I'll make sure they're protected. She buried her face in her hands, her sobs filling the room. I watched her, my heart heavy but resolute. This was what needed to happen. There was no going back. Later that night, I received a call from Lydia. Hank, you're not going to believe this, she said, her tone electric with excitement. I just heard back from Tom's HR department. They're launching an internal investigation. And his wife? She's already filed for divorce. Good, I said, the faintest hint of satisfaction creeping into my voice. What about Jessica? She'll get the papers tomorrow, Lydia said. But there's one more thing. I've been digging into Tom's financials, and I think we can build a case for fraud. If we tie Jessica's involvement to it, she could lose everything. I paused, the weight of her words sinking in. Jessica had already lost so much. Her reputation, her marriage, her lover. Did I really want to take it further? Do it, I said after a moment. I want her to understand what it feels like to lose everything. Lydia chuckled softly. You got it. By the time I crawled into bed that night, I felt a strange sense of calm. The storm that had consumed my life was finally clearing, leaving behind a path forward. It wasn't the path I had envisioned when I married Jessica, but it was mine now, and I intended to walk it without looking back. The papers were served the next morning. Jessica received them in person, a courier dropping the envelope at her feet as she stood on the porch in her bathrobe. I watched from my car parked down the street, her stunned expression a small, bitter victory in the wreckage of our life. I'd made my decision. This was the end of the line for us. Over the next few weeks, the wheels of justice turned slowly but steadily. Lydia kept me updated on the progress of the divorce and the lawsuit against Tom. His company had placed him on administrative leave, pending the outcome of their investigation. Word spread quickly, and he became a pariah in professional circles. Jessica, too, faced the fallout. Friends stopped returning her calls. The moms from the PDA whispered about her in the parking lot at school drop-offs. Even Rose, her so-called confidant, distanced herself, likely to avoid being implicated in the scandal. Meanwhile, I focused on creating a sense of normalcy for the kids. They were young enough not to understand the full scope of what was happening, but they could sense the tension. I made sure they knew they were loved, even if their world was changing. Every bedtime story, every soccer game, every hug was a reminder that I wasn't going anywhere. One evening, about a month after the papers were served, Jessica showed up at my temporary apartment. She looked different, tired, worn down. The confident, defiant woman who had stood in my living room weeks ago was gone. Hank, she said softly, her voice cracking. Can we talk? I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. What is there to talk about, Jessica? You made your choices. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to understand. But please, can we try? For the kids. Her words hung in the air, heavy with desperation. For a moment, I thought about the life we'd built together, the good years before everything fell apart. But then I remembered the photos, the lies, the betrayal. No, Jessica, I said firmly. This isn't something we can come back from. You made your choices, and now we're living with the consequences. She sobbed quietly, wiping her face with the sleeve of her jacket. I'm sorry, she whispered. For everything. I'm sorry too, I said, my tone softer but no less resolute. But this is the end. The lawsuit against Tom proceeded quicker than expected. With the evidence Lydia had gathered, including testimonies from other employees he had harassed, his reputation was obliterated. His wife left him, taking their kids and most of their assets. The company terminated him, and rumors swirled about possible criminal charges related to financial improprieties. I took no pleasure in his ruin, but I felt a sense of justice. He had taken so much from me, but now he was paying the price. The divorce was finalized 6 months after it began. I was awarded full custody of the kids, with Jessica granted supervised visitation. She didn't fight it. Whether out of guilt or resignation, I didn't care. I sold the house, the memories there too painful to hold on to, and moved to a smaller place on the other side of town. The kids adjusted surprisingly well. They missed their mother, of course, but they were resilient. I focused on giving them a stable, happy life, one where they felt safe and loved. As for me, I found solace in the quiet moments, early morning runs, evenings spent reading, the occasional beer with Mike. I wasn't ready to start dating again, but I knew that someday I would. For now, it was enough to just breathe, to feel the weight of Jessica's betrayal lift a little more each day. One rainy afternoon, a letter arrived. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakable, Jessica's. I debated throwing it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single page, her words scrawled hastily, as if written through tears. Hank, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need you to know how sorry I am. Not just for what I did, but for how I destroyed us. I don't expect forgiveness, I don't deserve it. But I hope one day you'll remember the good times we had, the love we shared before I ruined everything. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I let you down. I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I'll always love you, Hank, even if I'm the one who broke us. Take care of the kids. They're lucky to have you. Jessica. I read the letter twice, then folded it and placed it in a drawer. It didn't change anything, but it felt like a chapter closing. Life didn't magically become perfect after the divorce, but it became mine again. The scars Jessica left would fade in time, and I would rebuild. I wasn't the same man I was before all of this, but maybe that was okay. I was stronger now, more certain of who I was and what I deserved. One day, when the time was right, I'd open my heart again. But for now, I had my kids, my freedom, and a future that was finally my own. And that was enough.